everybody, and welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. My name is Christina Previtt. I am one of the two lead faculty for Modern Management of the Older Adult, Essential Foundations. I also teach, of course, Clinical Management of the Fitness, Athlete, Pregnancy, and Postpartum. The Modern Management course, we actually have 2 online courses and 1 live course. Our Essential Foundations online course, our first of the 2 online courses, is actually getting started this week. So with a lot of the courses being canceled and people scrambling to get CEUs, we have added faculty for that course. And so if you are looking for CEUs, if you had planned on doing a live course in the next couple of weeks and it has since been canceled as a result of COVID, we have opened it up and it is eligible for 16 CEUs. It's an 8-week course, so it does depend on when your licensure is up for renewal. But if you guys do need an online course, we would recommend taking ours because we love working in the Jerry space. Okay, so I had a hard time finding wanting to talk about any content that wasn't related to COVID because it has really been taking over a lot of the media. Obviously, it has been a big change to our lives. And the first thing that I wanted to say is for my private practice owners who are being socially responsible and are closing their doors, I see you all. I am a private practice owner. I own a gym in Kingston, Ontario, and we have been closed over the next since Monday, and we have been contemplating that closure since last week. And I understand the stress and anxiety. I was waking up with headaches from stress. I had been talking to other business owners. I was grappling with being socially responsible, but also being fiscally and financially viable. And so the first thing that I wanted to say is that for those owners that have decided to close their doors and be responsible and help curb the spread of this virus, I see you all. And if you want to ever talk and just vent or cry or have a virtual drink, I am here for you, and you can absolutely reach out to me. Taking the COVID piece and putting a spin into the Jerry PT space, I also want to thank all of our frontline clinicians who are in acute care, who are working with the vulnerable of the vulnerable, who are starting to see these COVID cases and are trying to do everything that they can to make sure that everything is okay. I was talking to Julie Breyer. She's in acute care and has taken a lot of our courses. And she said that the stress and strain on the system is becoming real. It is starting to create this process where not everybody is going to have access to outpatient rehab, but they're starting to have to make those decisions about who could potentially have access to PT and who could not because of some of the overloading of our systems. And so it's a really tough place to be in. And so again, I see you guys and we are thankful for everything that you are doing. We are obviously also thankful for the nurses and doctors, but I wanted to highlight the PTs as well and allied health professionals who are trying to do everything that they can. And for private practice owners, that's just trying to do telehealth or sitting on the couch. And for our frontline staff, that is trying to do everything we can for the people that are in our world or in our space. Okay, so if you have been following the podcast I've been on here for a couple years now. You have known that I have taken a huge interest in the labeling and diagnosing of frailty and how we can use frailty as a prognostic indicator. And I have been on the fence about whether or not that is useful because being called frail is negatively stigmatizing. And if that isn't going to trigger any sort of change in care pathway, then I wonder about its utility. And so as a refresher, if we're looking at trying to diagnose frailty in an umbrella term is a vulnerability to external stressors. And that can mean physical stressors, that can be cognitive stress, that can be social stress. It can mean anything from a person who is having trouble with community ambulation, ADLs, IADLs, and there's a sliding spectrum there, to people who are living remotely, pretty rural, and are living on their own. They can be very socially frail because if there was something to have happened to them, there may not be a person there for 3 or 4 days who would be able to respond to any sort of medical emergency if they couldn't answer the phone. So we have different spheres of frailty that we have talked about previously on the podcast. For physical frailty, the 5 physical phenotypes are physical inactivity, muscular weakness, slow gait speed, fatigue and lethargy, and an unexpected loss of more than 10 pounds. And the marker for how long that is usually anywhere between 6 to 12 months. And so if you have 3 or more of those physical phenotypes, then you are considered to be frail. If you have none of them, you're considered to be robust, as indicated by Linda Fried's 5 physical phenotypes of frailty. In the wake of COVID, this has been a really interesting development and one that definitely weighs heavily on my heart. If anybody has been following what has been going on in Italy, they are at a point where the amount of cases of COVID are exceeding, in some cities like Milan, it's exceeding the capacity of the healthcare system to respond optimally to every person. What that means is that there are physicians who have had to make decisions about if a person will be put on a respirator or not, or rush the decision of when it is considered not likely that a person is going to get better and take them off a respirator so that somebody who has more of a heightened prognosis for returning and recovering from COVID can do so. And I was listening to a bunch of interviews from Italian physicians who are struggling. And one of the biggest indicators that they talked about was, they called it fragility, but frailty as the indicator as to what, they said it's irrespective of age, but frailty was one of the major indicators that they were using from a prognosis perspective to decide if a person should be on a respirator or not. And this is an instance where, knowing the prognosis, we know that individuals with more levels of frailty, so are having either more of those physical phenotypes, especially in combination with multimorbidity, are less likely to, they're going to have heightened hospital stays, they're less likely to transition to home care, they're more likely to go into hospital with an acute illness. When they're in the hospital, they're more likely to stay there for longer. And that research is actually guiding a lot of Italian doctors' decision-making, and in honestly probably the worst possible way. I can't imagine being a physician on the front line right now and having to make that decision. And this is one instance where this information is guiding our decisions, because we have some of these doctors who have to play God and have to decide between 2 people who has the heightened amount of recovery, who has a heightened capacity for recovery. And I'm going to get emotional about talking about this, but it's one of these things where if we have to make that decision, we have to try and think about utilization of resources, especially when they are so finite. And I am just praying that is not going to be the case in the United States and in Canada. There was a video going around from Italians, and they were asking them to post a video talking to themselves 10 days ago, and this was just before the quarantine, and they had talked about how important it was to take this seriously because of some of these situations that are happening in Italian healthcare. And so from that perspective, what we're seeing is a usefulness for an unfortunate cause and for these doctors about using those frailty indicators and it leading to a different care pathway. As clinicians who are working in the community, what we can try and do now is we can try and offer telehealth when we are over the hump of this outbreak, I am hoping that we can help slide that scale for our clients that are in the community or in healthcare. Hi, Julie. I was actually just talking about you on this podcast, and now you're listening, which is great. That one of the things that we can do once we are over COVID is we can try and start seeing where our clients lie on that continuum of frailty and trying to push them away. We know that frailty means vulnerability. We know now, again, in Italy, that the more frail a person was, the more likely they are to not have access to a respirator. And we are going to try and optimize the health of our older clients as much as we possibly can. We're seeing the emergency piece of COVID happening now, but Jerry PTs, we're going to start seeing the other side of it. Once people have started to recover, their respiratory function is going to be lower, and we're going to be working on trying to optimize that with either appropriately dosed exercise programs that are going to optimize their mobility status all the way to helping implement inspiratory muscle training protocols to help optimize some of their breathing mechanics for individuals who are more low level and may be more confined to wheelchair or bed. And so we can do a lot on the other side of things. So right now we have to kind of just settle in, and if we are not working right now, we need to just support and do everything we can to socially distance and isolate to help our colleagues that are on the front line. And then on the other side of it, just know that we are going to have a lot of people with respiratory compromise that we are going to be needing to help. And as PTs, we have a huge skill set. We often focus on our orthopedic skill set, but we have a huge skill set in respiratory and cardiovascular rehabilitation, and we are going to need to rely on that and try and help the members of our community recover from this condition. Alrighty, that is it for me for today. If you guys, again, as a small business owner, I understand the stress and the strain. There has been a lot of hours of lost sleep. There has been a lot of hours stressing over the financials of our business and hoping and praying that we are going to be financially vulnerable. If you ever want to talk or just, this is coffee, but if you ever want to remotely have a drink together, we are there for you. The faculty has been really amazing, and Jeff and Alan have been wonderful talking about the Institute of Clinical Excellence and our response to COVID in response to some of the information that we're getting from the CDC and the US and Canadian governments. So if you guys, again, have any questions or comments, please let me know. We have opened up modern management of the older adult essential foundations, and anybody who has registered for a live course, if they want to switch their memberships or their registration rather to an online platform, you are absolutely able to do that, and we will be starting this week. All right, guys. Be strong out there. We see you. And thank you to all of our frontline staff who are doing everything they can to make sure that this doesn't become catastrophic.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.